Denzel Washington sat in the bright, sterile glow of CNN's primetime debate stage, one hand resting loose on his knee while the other tapped a slow rhythm against his armrest. Bill Maher sat opposite him, legs crossed, smirk resting lazy at the edge of his mouth like he'd already written his closing punchline. The audience hush-hummed with that nervous CNN studio energy, polite but heavy, waiting for the first words to crack it open. Anderson Cooper's voice was smooth as glass, but the edge underneath showed he knew exactly why everyone was leaning forward. Denzel, you called out what you see as performative patriotism in Hollywood and politics last week. Bill here says you're part of the problem. Let's start with that. Bill Maher's grin sharpened. Look, Denzel, you're a brilliant actor, but you're not some philosopher king. You call out the left, the right, the press, but then you turn around and cash the checks. You can't be America's conscience when you're this comfortable. A soft chuckle cracked through the hush, but Denzel's expression didn't flicker. His voice landed calm and deep. Comfort doesn't mean silence, Bill. Some of us got our comfort by telling the truth when it wasn't convenient. Bill's eyebrows rose. Telling the truth? You've spent your career pretending to be other people. You're an actor, not an oracle. A hush laugh floated up from the back, then died when Denzel leaned forward. Funny thing about pretending, Bill. Sometimes it shows you more truth than people want to see. Anderson's eyes tracked back and forth like a referee already sensing the gloves might drop. Bill, you called Denzel's comments anti-American. Want to explain that? Bill's smirk widened. He calls out so-called fake patriots but doesn't offer any solutions. He just scolds. Patriotism is messy. Denzel, you don't get to cherry-pick the parts that make you feel righteous. Denzel's voice dropped, so low the hush pressed in to catch every word. You think patriotism is a stand-up routine, Bill. Throw some cheap shots at the flag, make the audience laugh, collect your applause. Bill's eyes narrowed, his tone sharpening. And you think it's your job to sit up there on your moral high horse and call half the country hypocrites? Denzel didn't flinch. No, I think it's my job to remind people that real patriotism costs you something. If it's comfortable, you're doing it wrong. The hush bent tighter. Someone coughed, but the tension didn't break. Bill's voice came back cold. Well, maybe you should get off your soundstage and visit real America. See what it costs people who don't get to sit in a mansion when the camera's cut. Denzel's eyes didn't blink. I have, Bill. I grew up there. I know exactly what it costs. Which is why I know you're lying when you call yourself a patriot for mocking it. The hush cracked with a single gasp, and everyone knew this wasn't going to stay polite for long. Bill Maher shifted in his seat, one knee bouncing as if he could shake off Denzel's stare. The hush pressed so close that every mic on stage picked up the tiny snap of Bill's ring tapping his mug. Anderson Cooper looked from Bill to Denzel, his voice steady but his eyes tracking every spark. Bill, you say Denzel's moral stand is hypocrisy. You want to tell him to his face. Bill leaned forward, grin gone now, replaced by that familiar late-night snarl. Sure, Denzel, you talk about sacrifice, but you're not the one paying the price. It's the middle-class guy who loses his job to bad trade deals, the kid who gets sent overseas for oil, the single mom who can't buy groceries. You say real patriotism costs you something. So what exactly are you paying? A few audience heads nodded. The hush bent, but didn't snap. Denzel didn't move. What I pay is the cost of telling the truth when the money says shut up. What I pay is the cost of not kissing the ring, so I get to sit at your cocktail parties. Bill barked out a bitter laugh. Cocktail parties? You think I care about that? I've been calling out the left and the right for decades. You know what that makes me? Free. Denzel tilted his head slightly, voice soft but coiled. No, it makes you comfortable. There's a difference. A hush gasp slipped out, then died just as fast. Bill shot back, voice climbing over the hush. Comfortable? You don't think you're comfortable, Denzel? Your movies make $1 billion. Your name's a brand. You have an empire. So don't stand here and play working-class hero. Denzel leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes locked. I've never pretended I'm still that kid in Mount Vernon. But I never forgot him, either. You can't say the same. Bill's jaw twitched, his smile now a thin sneer. You think because you give a speech at a charity gala that makes you a patriot? Denzel didn't blink. No. What makes me a patriot is telling people like you that laughing at this country's pain isn't rebellion. It's cowardice dressed up as wit. The hush bent sharper. A low hum of audience chatter started, but nobody dared break it open. Anderson's tone dropped to a hush breaker. Bill, he's saying your cynicism doesn't make you brave. Does that sting? Bill scoffed, voice flat. No, because unlike Denzel here, I'm not selling bedtime stories about America being great if we just care more. This place is broken, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise just to make the flag wavers feel good. Denzel's voice snapped so low the hush leaned in. You're right, Bill. This place is broken, but people don't fix what they've been taught to hate. And that's why you're no patriot. The hush split in half. One side gasped, one side clapped, and Bill's glare said this was nowhere near finished. Bill Maher's grin was gone, replaced by that cold, clipped tone his audience knew from late-night takedowns. His knee bounced faster now, his voice slicing through the hush. So now I'm not a patriot because I don't stand there waving a flag and saluting every lie this country tells itself? Denzel's shoulders stayed square, his fingers laced together like they were holding in the storm behind his eyes. You're not a patriot because you confuse cynicism with courage. You'd rather watch it all burn so you can sit there saying, I told you so. A sharp cough cracked the hush. A few heads turned, caught in the heat. Anderson Cooper leaned back, letting the tension do his job for him. Bill shot forward, voice rising. You know what's cowardly? Telling people everything will be fine if they just love America a little harder. That's the con. Patriotism isn't worship. It's calling BS when the country screws people over. Denzel didn't flinch. Then call it out. But you don't stop there. You mock the people who still believe it can be better. Bill jabbed a finger toward him, his words coming quick now. Those people vote for lies. They fall for every cheap promise. And when it doesn't work out, they blame the same scapegoats they always do. Denzel leaned in, voice quiet, but so sharp the hush leaned with him. You ever think they vote for lies because they've lost hope someone might actually tell the truth and stick around to help? A ripple of nods moved through the front rows, but Bill didn't soften. Bill scoffed, his eyes hard. I've spent 30 years trying to get people to wake up. You think that's easy? It's not my job to coddle them. Denzel's tone dropped so low the hush pressed in tight. It's not your job to spit on them either. People need to be challenged, but they don't need to be humiliated. Bill barked a laugh, short and bitter. So what? You want me to hug it out with QAnon? Pat the Proud Boys on the head? Tell the racists they're misunderstood? Denzel's head tilted slightly, voice calm as thunder. No. But maybe remember there's a difference between people who profit off the hate and people who fall for it because they've got nothing left. The hush snapped around the edges, an audience gasp, a single soft clap that died before it could spread. Anderson's voice cut in, a hush breaker. Bill, you're being called a cynic, not a realist. Is he right? Bill didn't blink. No, because real patriotism is saying the country's messed up, rotten in places. Real patriotism is not pretending a bad marriage is fine if you just smile through the bruises. Denzel's eyes didn't move. Then fix the marriage, Bill. Don't brag about the bruises like they make you wise. The hush broke into a low hum of tension. Both men locked, neither flinching. Bill Maher leaned forward so far his mic brushed his collar, voice scraping every edge of the hush. You stand there acting like you're the moral compass. But where were you when your industry sold this country lie after lie? Where were you when Hollywood turned pain into box office gold? Denzel didn't blink, his voice so even it forced the hush back into place. I was right there, Bill. And I didn't lie to myself about what it was. I spoke up. I didn't hide behind a punchline. Bill's laugh cracked out like glass. Spare me the righteous act. You're one of them. You made your millions off the same broken country you claim to love so much. Denzel's jaw flexed, but his tone stayed low, measured. And you made your millions sneering at it. I never mocked the people who bought my ticket. I never told them they were fools for hoping. A ripple of applause fluttered through the front row, soft, nervous, like they weren't sure whose side they were on. Bill stabbed a finger at the crowd. These people don't need bedtime stories. They need to wake up. Denzel leaned in, voice dropping to a hush cutter. They don't wake up because you insult them. They wake up when they see someone still willing to stand beside them, flaws and all. Bill shot back, voice climbing. Oh, please. Flaws and all is how we got here. Excusing ignorance. Tolerating lies because it feels good. Denzel's tone turned sharper now, steel under every word. No, we got here because we gave up on talking to each other. Because people like you made mocking each other the only thing that sells. Bill's grin came back, but it didn't touch his eyes. You think your pretty speeches fix anything? You're just a feel-good mascot for people too scared to admit this country's rotten. Denzel's eyes flashed. I'm not here to feel good. I'm here to remind people it's worth fighting for, even when it's broken. Bill barked out another cold laugh. Fighting for what? More flags on trucks? More empty pledges? Denzel leaned so close the hush bent forward with him. Fighting for the people who still believe the promise is worth more than your cheap jokes. A sharp gasp cracked near the back. Anderson glanced at the camera, then back to Bill. Bill, Denzel says your cynicism is part of the rot. What do you say? Bill's smirk twisted. I say his hope is more dangerous than my truth. Denzel's voice landed calm, but thunder deep. Then maybe you're the rot. The hush exploded in a gasp, the audience on edge, waiting to see if either one would blink. The hush across the CNN stage felt like a held breath on the edge of breaking. Bill Maher's smirk was gone, replaced by that thin, tight grin he wore when he'd run out of jokes to hide behind. Denzel Washington didn't move, shoulders squared, eyes locked like he was speaking for every man who'd ever been told his hope was foolish. Anderson Cooper shifted in his seat, trying to keep his voice even. Denzel, you just called Bill the rot. That's a big statement. Denzel didn't blink. Rot doesn't always come in the form of hate. Sometimes it shows up wrapped in sarcasm, in the cheap laugh that says nothing will ever change, so why bother trying? Bill barked a bitter laugh. You want to believe in fairy tales? Be my guest. But don't stand there and pretend you're the only one who loves this country. I love it enough to see it for what it is. Denzel's tone snapped like a flag in a storm. No. You love it enough to pick it apart until there's nothing left. You think you're brave because you point out the cracks. But the cracks are where the light gets in. Bill's eyes narrowed. Quoting Leonard Cohen won't fix America, Denzel. Denzel leaned forward, every word landing like a hammer on the hush. No, but reminding people it's worth fixing might. You don't get to mock people for trying to believe in something bigger than your jokes. A low, ragged cheer sparked near the front, quickly swallowed back when Bill turned to glare at the audience. Bill's voice dropped low, cold as steel. And you don't get to wrap yourself in the flag while you sit in your mansion and lecture people about struggle. Denzel's jaw flexed. I never claimed to be perfect, but I've stood in enough doorways and sat at enough tables with folks who don't have cameras on them to know you're wrong. Bill pushed back in his chair, sneer creeping in. Keep playing the preacher, Denzel. Maybe you'll sell a few more tickets. Denzel didn't flinch. I'm not selling anything. I'm telling you that when all you do is tear down, you're not the solution. You're the disease pretending to be the cure. The hush fractured. One half clapped, the other half hissed. Bill's face turned red, but he leaned in anyway, his words low and sharp. You can't fix a lie by hugging it. This country's rotten. Maybe you should accept it. Denzel's voice dropped to a hush breaker, final and unflinching. I'll accept the truth, but I'll never accept that the rot is the only story we have left. Bill leaned back, arms folded, eyes narrow. Then keep preaching. I'll keep laughing. Denzel stood slowly, eyes sweeping the room like he'd carved it open. Keep laughing, Bill. but don't ever call yourself a patriot again." And with that, the hush stayed cracked wide open. No neat bow. Just the raw truth left echoing under the studio lights while the cameras caught the last glare between the cynic who mocked the dream and the man who refused to stop fighting for it.